Alright guys, how's it going? Today we're going to be looking at leading flops in 3-bet pots, and it's going to be the final video of this series on leading flops. Today we're going to be looking at leading strategies in 3-bet pots. Specifically, we're going to be looking at cutoff versus button at 40 blinds, 60 blinds, and 100 blinds. We're going to try to determine the highest frequency lead boards for each stack size and have a quick look at some strategies and combo usage for our highest frequency leads. So pretty much same pattern as the previous videos. We can start off by having a quick look at the global leading frequencies for all the position pairs and stack sizes. And we can see immediately that at 30 bigs, we're leading quite a bit more than at the other stack sizes. This is same logic as before. Being out of position is less bad for you if you're shallow and more problematic if you're deep. Other than that, there are no real clear patterns here in what position pairs are being led the most. You know, you can see like at 40 bigs, it's a bit all over the place. At 60 bigs, we're leading more from the UTG-8 versus button cutoff or low jack, while at 100 bigs, we're leading more in cutoff versus button, low jack versus button, or low jack versus cutoff. So a bit all over the place, and it kind of just depends on range construction. The reason that I don't want to include 30 big blinds in the study today, we're just going to be looking at 40, 60, and 100. And we're just going to be looking at cutoff versus button. Because if we start looking at all the position pairs, it's going to be a very, very long video, and we're not going to really have time to go much in depth at all. So I've chosen to look at cutoff versus button since it's the most frequently played spot. And I've chosen to not look at 30 bigs, even though it's a very high frequency lead spot, just because of how the ranges look. So we can go into GTO Wizard and I can explain better when we look at the ranges. So here you have the 3-bet range, button versus cutoff, and we can see it's only 2.8%, and it's a very specific range. You know, you have like tens up to kings that are like mixing half and half. Ace king suited is like the only pure combo pretty much. Then you have like these scattered combos here and there, you know, and for this study to make any sense, I think we need a range that's a bit more complete and a bit more realistic. Like studying this specific one, it's going to be so specific to like certain combos being included. For example, like 7x is probably going to be pretty good for us here because we have these three. It's going to be so weird to look at this range, honestly. So that's why I've chosen instead to just use the 40 big blind range, as we can go and have a look at that one. So here is the 40 big blind range. So as we can see, this one is a bit more developed at 8%. Yeah, sure, you still have a lot of mixing for these combos, but at least it's a bit more complete, you know, like we can see like the trends here. Okay, we have these offsuit broadways that we're bluffing 25 to 50% of the time, these couple of offsuit ace-x, and then you have like some scattered suited queen x, king x, jack x, whatever over here. So a bit more developed range, and I think it makes a lot more sense to use this one. Pretty much like tens up to aces and ace king for value, and then everything else is a bluff. Well, you have some ace queen suited and you have these pairs but very low frequency. We can have a look at the cutoff's calling range as well. Cutoff's calling range is starting at like ace 10 off, king jack off, most of queen jack off, all the suited connectors pretty much. King 4 suited, so quite wide I would say in the suited king x department. King 4 suited, queen 8 suited. For some reason we're skipping king 8 suited. I guess it has to do that it's dominated quite a lot by ace 8 off, for example, that we're tributing on the button. Can have a quick look here. I'm gonna guess it's because of this one. It's dominated too much. Then again, we have these two as well. Fewer combos, of course. But yeah, anyways, every suited ace except for the ones that are 4-bet jamming, these wheel aces. Let's head into the aggregation report. All right, so let's get into report and see what kind of boards we're typically leading here. For the previous videos, I spent some time looking at the aggregation reports and some time going in depth on specific boards. This video will be no different, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. So first of all, we can see that this is not a high lead frequency spot, and with range, we only lead 2.6% of the time. I think population here has a tendency to only lead very specific middling connected type boards in these positions though, like 7, 8, 9, 8, 9, 10 type boards. And as we can see here, that's not enough. We can even see that there are a few boards we want to lead jam on here for 2x pot. Not many, but a few. So we can have a look at that one first and just sort by all-in leads. Okay, so I've sorted by jam percentage now, and we can see that the board we lead jam the most is this Jack 10-8 flush draw. Very closely followed by 10-9-6, and let's see what else. Queen Jack 8, that one is a bit surprising actually. I see sometimes people finding these ones, but Queen Jack 8, maybe not so much. That one I was also not aware of. Okay, so before we go into any specific hands here, let's click through this report function and see what type of boards we are leading. First of all, we can see that Jack high is the big favorite, followed by Ace high, King high, and 9 high, Queen high, 10 high. Overall, not much leading at all, right? We're only leading 2.6% of the time, but these are our top contenders at 40. For suits, we're going to prefer monotone and flush draw over rainbow. Our range is going to be very suited heavy, and we're going to have a lot of suited ace-x and king-x, which is good for these type of boards. For pairing, we prefer that it's not paired. He has a big overpair advantage, so it makes sense that, that we don't prefer the paired boards here. And connectedness. I feel like the calling range is always going to have an advantage on connectedness, just because it is by default going to be a lot more connected than the 3-bet range. The 3-bet range is going to have a lot of like unconnected stuff, right? Like high-low suited stuff, while the calling range is going to have like all the suited connectors and stuff like that. So makes sense that we prefer the connected boards over disconnected boards. Anyways, let's have a closer look at the top contender, which is going to be the Jack 10-8. Okay, so first of all, we can see that we're pretty much just playing jams, tiny bit of pots. I'm going to resolve it anyways with the AI and see if we get the same answer doing that. I assume we will, just based on how this looks. So same answer, pretty much, just like this one disappeared. So now we're just jamming or checking. Let's have a quick look at the ranges tab first. So we can see that we have 44.5% equity here, and still we want to lead jam for 2x pot with 24% of our hands. If we look at the hands distribution, we can see that we have, let's have a look here. We have an advantage in the top part, and then he wins the 3 next ones. We have quite a lot more straights than him, but he has more sets, he has more 2 pairs, he has more over pairs. Where we really beat him is the top pair section, where we have like almost 19% of our range is going to be top pair. He has 8%. So we really beat him on that one. Second pair, we beat him as well a little bit. For draws, we have a lot more combo draws, a lot more flush draws. Yeah, not flush draws and flush draws. And a lot more open-enders. So I think the main driver is how big an advantage we have in top pair and second pair. And also the advantage in combo draws, like these flush draws and open-ended straight draws, which will also have a lot of equity. So I think a good way for us to realize all the equity of these hands is just to shovel all the money in right now. Because for a lot of turns, a lot of our hands are going to go down a lot in equity. And there probably is some pretty cool Mega Master effects going on here. That's typically what's happening on these type of boards when you're jamming for big amounts. Typically, there are Mega Master effects. Who coined that term anyways? Pads? I'm not sure. But in any case, for the uninitiated, the Mega Master means getting called by worse while at the same time folding out better. And I suspect that's what's going on in this one. So let's have a look at the strategy. Let's have a look here what's going on. First of all, we can see that we're pure jamming 9-8 suited. That's going to be one of those Mega Masters for sure, where we fold out some better hands and get called by some worse hands. And let's see what else. Jack 9, probably not a Mega Master. I doubt he's going to fold any Jack X. So this is just like straight up value shove. Queen 10 suited, this might be a cool Mega Master. I can imagine we're folding out 10x, like Ace 10 for example, by jamming this, while also getting called by flush draws and maybe king queen or ace nine, you know. A lot of these nut flush draws as well and king eye flush draws, they're going to have the same effects. They're going to fold out some better hands and get called by some worse hands. But I wouldn't call these Mega Master hands. Let's see how villain responds to our jam. So first thing to notice is that we're pretty much pure folding out ace 10 off and king 10 off. 10-7 suited as well. Bit surprising, that one goes in the muck unless it has a flush draw. We also fold him off a bunch of, not a bunch, but these two 8x hands, queen 8 suited, ace 8 suited. Bit surprised, I guess, that the queen 8 suited is going in the muck as well. Typically, villain is going to call a lot of these, like he would rather have queen 8 than ace 10, for example, but it looks very close in this one. For unpaired hands, he's calling ace queen suited and ace queen off, pure. I think that makes a lot of sense. Double gutter, 2 overcards, beats all of our bluffs. So that makes sense. He's mixing with ace king, king queen, depending on suits, and ace 9, depending on suits again. Actually a bit surprised that we find so many folds with these ones as well. Like even here you see we're doing some folding, or mostly folding actually. King queen with the king of hearts, queen of diamonds. Yes, it's nice to have the king of hearts for equity, but we also do block a bunch of bluffs with this one. What else? We're calling probably, let's do some filter action here. Let's include this. Okay, so we're actually folding a couple of flush draws as well. I've sorted for hearts now. So we're calling almost every flush draw except for these two, the two worst ones basically, right? So yeah, so the line is somewhere here. Otherwise, no real surprises. I think the biggest surprise for me here is that king queen off mixes folds. Let's go back to the aggregation report and have a look at our top contender for lead boards outside of jamming. Alright, so we're back at the aggregation report and I've sorted for highest frequency lead, no matter what size. I think this one is very counterintuitive and I don't think I've ever seen anyone pull this off in-game. If you look at the top leading board here, it's actually ace, king, king flush draw. And if we go a bit further down here, I think we're also going to find, yeah, there, ace, ace, king flush draw as well. These are very, very strange boards to lead and very counterintuitive. So let's have a look at this one and see what's going on. All right, so this is it. We're meant to be leading B40 41% of the time and rest is checking. First off, let's have a quick look here and we can see that we have 44% equity as out of position here, and still we want to incorporate a pretty big leading range, I would say. If you look at the equities, we're beaten here, we're beaten here, we don't have a nut advantage, we don't have equity advantage, so what is really going on here? I think the clue comes from this tab right here, where, okay, he has a bunch more full houses than us. He has ace queen, we never ace king, we never have ace king. Aces kind of equal, but yeah, he's gonna have a bunch more boats because he has all 16 combos of ace king, which we don't have. And remember, the range is not that many combos overall here, right? It's like 77 combos. What we have an advantage in is trips. We have all the suited king x almost that we opened. Remember, we do some folding with like king 8 suited, but otherwise we have almost all of them. King jack suited we're missing as well because we're going to 4-bet jam that one. But we have most of the suited king x. We also have king queen off and king jack off at a very high frequency. We also have more top pair than him. We're flatting most of our suited ace x, and we also flat a bunch with ace 10 off and ace jack off. So we have an advantage in both of these. I think that's where the leading comes from. But for me, I'm having still a bit of trouble wrapping my head around this one. It still feels kind of wrong to me, you know? But we can have a look at the strategy tab and see if we can come up with any solutions here. So in terms of what hands we're leading here, it's pretty heavily weighted towards stronger hands, as we can see. Like a lot of these king x are leading, you know? We don't really lead any of the total whiffs. Like if we look down at these ones, like, I mean 5-4 suited is a total whiff, but we do have backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw at least. If we look at the 6-5, for example, we're only leading with flush draw or backdoor flush draw. Same with this one, only flush draw. Same with this one, only flush draw. So we see with most of these hands, we need some extra equity to start leading. We don't want to just start leading with like 0 equity here, which makes a lot of sense. It's a board where we don't have equity advantage, we don't have nut advantage. So just leading random stuff wouldn't make too much sense. For the ace-x portion, it's just a bit mixed, I would say. Yeah, same here. It's suit dependent. We want to have a heart if we want to be leading the queen-jack. If we don't have a heart, we never lead. Pretty well mixed overall with everything else, I would say. Smallest pairs are getting led quite a bit. Like, first of all, if we lead these, we're going to fold out a bunch of over pairs or pairs between a king and sixes, for example. So those are pretty cool. We also have equity if we're up against king queen or ace queen or whatever. We do have equity compared to all of these that are just pretty much drawing stone dead versus anything, you know. So that makes a lot of sense that we're kind of mega mastering a little bit with these ones, folding out some better pairs while getting called by like queen jack suited and whatever, I guess. We can have a look at his continuing range as well. I guess one more thing to note here is that we're leading more with all of these like weaker king x than we are with king queen and king jack, for example, and king 10. I guess it's because when you're leading a king, you want him to continue, of course. And if you're leading king 4, it's more likely he has a hand that can continue, like pocket 10s or ace 10 or whatever, compared to if you're leading king 10 suited, where you're blocking some of those hands, right? Anyways, let's have a look what happens when we lead here, how he's supposed to respond. We can see here that like leading sixes is going to be quite beneficial. We get called by jack 10, queen jack, while at the same time folding out queens, 10s, 9s, whatever, you know, some Mega Master stuff going on there. Otherwise, no real surprises. He's not going to float anything ridiculous. Like when he floats, it's basically a flush draw or a gut shot for these hands. Anyways, let's move up to 60 big blinds and have a look at the ranges up there. All right, so this is the button 3-betting range at 60. We can see that it's pretty similar looking at 40, just a bit more suited now and a bit wider overall. We're going to face less 4-bet shoves being this deep, plus higher SPR is going to be better for us as the in-position player. So this is why we get to expand our 3-betting range. But yeah, overall, we can see it's like 10s plus, pretty pure, ace-queen suited, pretty pure, ace-king off, pure. So ace-queen suited, I think we were mixing at 40 because it's not a great spot when you 3-bet and you get jammed on. You have to call off, but you're not loving it. But here, we don't get jammed on that often, so we can safely 3-bet, and if we get 4-bet small, we can just call ace-queen suited. I think that's what's going on. Also, these pairs that are mixing are probably also going to have to call off if we do 3-bet them and do get jammed on here. But if I look at the cutoff range, we can see that we're not getting jammed on that often. I mean, actually, it's a decent bit. It's a decent bit, like, yeah, 8.2%. It's more than I thought it would be, for sure. But I would assume that like all of these pairs that we're 3-betting, we're just 3-betting to call off. It's a bit outside of this video, but let's have a quick look. Yeah, we can see that any pair that we 3-bet here, we are just going to have to call off because they're going to have enough equity versus all of these combos right here, which ends up being a lot of combos plus these ones. So yeah, anyways, that's not what we're looking at in this video. So let's move on. We're going to be calling, and then we're going to be going to the aggregation report. So let's have a quick look. We're calling a lot of suited ace-x, a lot of suited king-x, all of the suited connectors and gappers, pretty much. And then we're mixing with all of these Broadway type hands, folding king 10, queen 10, jack 10. So on the aggregation report here now, we can see that our top leaderboards have changed quite a bit. At 40, we saw that our top leading candidates were jack high boards, ace high boards, king high boards, stuff like this. Now, it's more of these like low mono connected boards. We can click through this one real quick and have a look. So yeah, pretty much no leading on like the big boards now at 60. It's just going to be 6 high, 7 high, 5 high, 4 high, a little bit of 8 high. A lot of leading on monotone and flush draw. I guess we are very suited heavy, and we have a lot of suited ace-x and king-x here compared to him. For paired boards, we just vastly prefer the non-paired boards. Pretty much no leading on paired or triple boards. Also vastly prefer connected boards. Like it is just going to be like very specifically the low connected boards here, right? And if the board is very low, it is by default going to be connected. Let's have a look at our highest frequency lead, the 543 mono. Okay, so we can see that optimal sizing is going to be B25, and we're going to use it 43% of the time. In ranges here, we can see that equities actually run really, really close. We're actually a slight equity dog at 49.5, but we realize more than our fair share of this equity because we have more straight flushes than him, more flushes, more straights, more sets, more two pair. He has an advantage in overpairs, sure, but we're quite deep now. We're playing SPR 3, so I mean, not that deep, but deep enough that it matters a bit to have this nut advantage for sure. Like this part here adds up to a reasonably big part of our overall range, right? So in terms of what hands we're betting, it seems like it's a bit all over the place. There are some like pure give ups here in like the middling region, like all of these hands that has like nothing going for them. But we even mix some kind of counterintuitive stuff, like the king 10 of spades and stuff like that, you know? Yeah, with ace 10 and ace jack, we mostly want to have a heart to be leading. With ace queen, it's the opposite. Ace of hearts is just pure checking. I guess it's just a hand that doesn't accomplish enough. It just dominates a lot of his 3-bet bluffs, while for these ones, it's kind of opposite. But yeah, pretty well mixed overall. Let's move on to 100 bigs and see what's going on there. All right, so moving up to 100 big blinds here, we can see that the 3-bet range is very similar to the one at 60 big blinds. We do a bit more mixing with the top, so we can see that like hands as strong as queens and jacks and tens are mixing quite a bit. Also, we're adding a few more of the hands that really don't want to face 4-bet shoves at 60. Hands like king, queen suited, king, jack suited, some queen, jack suited. These hands, we were just flatting at 60 because we didn't really want to get shoved on. Here, we don't really get shoved on much at all. So, yeah, pretty safe to 3-bet these ones. If we look at the continuing range for cutoff, we can see that there is still a little bit of shoving still, but it's very, very close. And I think most opponents won't really do this for 100. And basically, there's a couple of hands that wants to shove a little bit here, and it's jacks and ace king off. But yeah, I think it's not going to happen much. I think most people just play a 4-betting range and calling range. We can see here he's flatting hands as strong as pocket jacks, and with range overall just playing a bit higher calling frequency than before. This range is a bit more protected as well because we're calling very strong hands like ace queen suited, jacks, tens. Some really strong hands in the calling range here. So if we go to the report, we can see that the kind of boards we want to lead here are all the small connected ones like 5, 6, 7, 4, and 8 high. Very low frequency on all the bigger ones. We can click through here and get a better view. 5 and 6 high, pretty good. 7, 4 high, good. Below that, not so much. For suits, monotone, good. Flush draw, good. Rainbow, not so good. Same pattern as before. We do have a lot of suited stuff in this calling range compared to the 3-betting range. We're going to be folding a lot of the offsuit stuff that he is going to be 3-betting. For pairs, non-paired boards are still our vast favorite. And for connectedness, we really want the board to be connected. Yeah, we're calling all the suited connectors, all the suited gappers. His range is going to be more disconnected than ours. So yeah, makes sense. So let's have a look at one of these top leading boards. It's going to be a bit similar to the one we looked at for 60, But let's have a look at the 6-5-4 flush draw. This one right here. All right, so you can see that we're using the B25 sizing here approximately 3/4 of the time. Pretty high lead frequency for sure. If we go into the ranges tab, we can see we have 53% equity and 108% equity realization. So both, we're going to have a nut advantage and equity advantage on this board. Like we're going to have 2.5x the amount of straights that he has. We're going to have 9 times as many sets as he does. Twice as many 2-pair combos. Also, if we click through to this draw section, we're going to see that we have more combo draws, more nut flush draws, more open-enders, more gut shots. Yeah, we just have more of all of these draws than him. So if we want to look at what type of hands we're leading, it looks like at first glance, it's like pretty even mix across the board. This is typically the case when we have nut and equity advantage, both being pretty big. And because of this, the frequency gets to be very high. In the previous sim, we looked at the 5-4-3 mono at 60. We saw that we had nut advantage, but actually a slight equity disadvantage. We were at like 49.5, I think. And there we saw that we were allowed to bet at a much lower frequency. We had a bunch of pure checks because of our equity disadvantage, like 10-9 of spades, 9-8 of clubs, etc. In this case, we also have a few pure give-ups, but they're much more rare. Like for example, if we exclude all heart and diamond combos, we go in here, we exclude heart and diamond. So now we can see all of these hands are suited spades and clubs. All of these offsuit ones are spade club or club spade combos. We still see that for the most part, everything is getting bet at some reasonable frequency. Yeah, sure, you have like some pure give-ups with this king jack and the jack 10 of spades, jack 10 of clubs. But for the most part, you're including a lot of very low equity hands in this leading range. All right, so with that said, let's move on to the summary for the session. To summarize the session today, we are going to be leading more at shallow stack depths. This makes a lot of sense. I've explained it multiple times. If you're out of position, you prefer being shallow because you're going to play less difficult decisions on turns and rivers, and you're going to get to realize more of your equity. Even at 40 bigs, we do lead jam some specific boards here for 2x pot, specifically like very medium ones like Jack 10-8, 10-9-7, etc. And that's going to happen at a reasonably high frequency. Like on the Jack 10-8 flush draw, for example, we 2x pot jammed like 1/4 of the time, which is quite a lot considering the amount of money we're putting into the pot there. The main driver of that is that we have a lot of top pair and second pair, plus draws that has a lot of equity. The board will often change equities by the turn or river, so we prefer just realizing all of our equity right here to avoid playing difficult turns out of position. We also lead some very counterintuitive boards, ace-king-king, ace-ace-king, etc. They're very counterintuitive as we only have 44.1% equity, and we've been trained to play pure checks on these boards forever. Villain has all the ace-king combos, etc. that we don't have. But the fact is that we have trips advantage and top pair advantage, and we do get to utilize that and develop a leading range. Once we get a bit deeper to 60 big blinds, the favored boards changes a lot. We now start by favoring 7-high, 6-high, 5-high, and 4-high boards instead of the jack-high, 10-high, ace-king-high. So yeah, it shifts a lot down to this region. At 100 big blinds, it's very much the same type of flops at 60, just low, connected, preferably mono or at least with a flush draw. So that's going to be it for the session. If you have any questions, as usual, drop them in the Discord or leave a comment on this video and I will try to get back to everyone. This is the last video on the leading series, so I'll come up with a new topic for my next series or maybe just do a one-off if there is something I want to look at. If you guys have any ideas or suggestions of what you want me to dive into, happy to hear it. that's gonna be it for this one. Thanks for watching and good luck.